Was it boxing that you got into?
Ran away from home when he was 14, joined the Navy. Was always a very keen swimmer.
Right, welcome to Significant. It's a podcast by The Yak. I'm here today with Mr. Andy Walsh. I'm going to say he's an investment banker, a trader, a martial artist, and lately has been involved with the whole crypto world. Welcome, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, mate. Not necessarily in that order, by the way.
Right.
And if you're hiding a bintang, get it out now.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, there we go.
So I was worried about the intro.
Just so we're on the same page.
Exactly, yeah. Cheers, buddy. Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
Good to see you. We've had
So a quick shout out
banters.
to Walsh's mum, number one.
Yes,
How's she doing?
Mum is getting on a coach today, going to Weymouth. She's 86 with her best friend, who actually we met on holiday in Dawlish when we were about 7. And their kids were the same age as me and my sister, brother and sister as well. So, both husbands have passed away, my dad and Margaret's dad, so her husband. So the girls are taking themselves away to Weymouth, which actually was where I learned to walk on the beach.
So that's where you grew up, is it? Or
No.
where did you grow up?
South London.
South London.
South London.
And when you say South London, I mean, what part of...
Well, between Bermondsey and Croydon, that sort of south.
Proper...
Yeah.
Proper Cockney?
Well, you could say Cockney. Well...
But not really Bow Bells, but more like...
No, well, that's east.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those people never came south of the river.
Really?
Unless they were taken.
So
it's all changed now, though, anyway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all totally changed.
And everyone south couldn't wait to get north, which actually we did do when I was young, in my early teens. We did move north. Dad finally got a good job.
So tell us how you grew up, and what was it like kind of early?
It was sort of, I suppose my sort of initial existence was the same as my mum, my grandmum, and my great grandmum, and my great grandmum, because we lived in the house in South London. It was since the 1850s we'd had that house. It was number one on a street of 100 terraced houses. The toilet was at the end of the garden. Right. There was only one sink in the house, and that was in the kitchen. So until the age of 5, I was bathing in that, and then after that, you had we called it the battleship, which was the big tin, bath that used to hang outside the kitchen. That would come in every Sunday, and everyone had a communal bath in there.
How was that heated then?
Boiling water,
right?
Just boiling water out off the stove, off the gas stove, and the toilet was we'd have to put candles in. Put candles on saucers and put them in the toilet in the winter so it didn't freeze over. Right. And you'd have to walk. Well, obviously in those days we had what they call them, pantry jars or whatever that you put under your bed. So
potties, not potties. No, what were they called?
I mean, back in the Victorian days. Potty, well, we had those. I mean, they were in the family firm. They're probably worth a lot of money now. But
really?
And so the toilet was up there, and that was next to the Anderson shelter,
the bomb shelter,
which was the bomb shelter from the war, and the house actually got quite a lot of damage during the war. The street behind us got bombed down hit by a doodlebug, and a lot of people died there. All the houses gone, and our house being number one, we had quite a bit of damage. Was with number one that the bricks sort of bowed out, so they put these huge steel girders in, with a big steel girder V plates all the way across it. My bedroom was upstairs with my nan, and my nan was living with us, and I could see daylight. But we had the coal fires in all the bedrooms. Yeah, there was no heating on it. It was exactly as it would have been 200 years ago.
So you had the coal shed, or was it like the bunker?
We had the coal
at front?
bunker,
Yeah.
and that was the naughty room.
Okay,
And if I was a naughty boy, I got literally
sent there.
by the scruff of the neck. The metal slide would come open.
In you went.
Bang, in you went.
So you had brothers and sisters?
And my sister. Yeah.
Right.
We had another sister that died young. It's just me and my sister.
And what had your family been doing there since 1870?
That was my mum's side of the family. My dad, he was from Shepherd's Bush, actually born in Croydon. Then Shepherd's Bush, moved around a lot. It's an Irish family, big Irish family. He ran away when he was...
Shout out to the Irish.
Mate, love the Irish. Actually, Walsh, I digress a little bit here, but our family name Walsh, we were actually the original Black Princes that went across for the Crown to invade Ireland back in the 1400s. And that's where we got the name, the Welsh. But our family emblem, the original family emblem, Thomastown, Kilkenny. Have you ever been there? Man, there's a box of frogs. Some of the best festivals in the world. But our family emblem, Walsh, is a swan in fighting pose. I don't know if you've ever seen a swan getting aggressive. Right. Pretty dangerous.
Move away. Yeah.
With a crown on it, which obviously is regal, and the swan is regal in the British monarchy as well, right. In British culture.
But what were they doing for a living?
With an arrow in each wing, okay. One in the heart, with the Latin underneath. Transfixus sed non mortis.
Which I, of course, know as...
transfixed, but never dead.
I did Latin for 8 years at school.
Well, come and get you. Well, you should...
I know, but I couldn't tell you what that meant. Yeah.
And, so Thomastown, Kilkenny, so we were a very, very successful family there. My great-great-grandfather lost everything in the 1920s crash. Okay. We're actually one of the founders of Kilkenny beer. Oh, so wow. If you see next time you're having a pint of Kilkenny, you see the badge there, and that's St Francis Abbey, and and all my ancestors are buried in there on the Celtic cross.
Wow, that's an incredible pedigree.
Yeah. And here we are.
Here we are in Double Espresso Studios in the heart of Kuta. When was the last time you were in Kuta in Bali?
Probably about 13 years ago with Blanca and a couple of other reprobates. Right. And I was actually in from Tokyo. Right. And I think they were just opening actually. I just, it's not my cup of tea.
It's a trip though, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Dad and how you grew up, because you've shared, I mean, I know you, Andy, right? So I kind of know a bit of your story, but I'm fascinated by your dad and the whole kind of, was it boxing that you got into?
Yeah, it's sort of, let me tell you sort of the history of how I sort of got into martial arts, and it really sort of comes down to my mum actually. So my dad ran away from home when he was 14, joined the Navy. Was always a very keen swimmer. Always got himself in trouble by his aunties, right, and his mum and dad, because he'd take the bread money and go to the swimming bars and swim. So he joined the Navy when he was 14 and became a very, very strong swimmer. He was Navy, actually was in the Olympics twice. Water polo team, backstroke, was the Navy backstroke champion, and also the Navy boxing champion. So he was on the ship one day, I think it was the Whirlwind, and it was based out of Malta. They were, in those days, you went off for 2 years and you didn't come back for 2 years. And there was no telephones, it was letters only. And he was on the ship one day, and this one of the petty officers came running down the ship with a bunch of pen pal letters. Right. I don't know if...
pen pals, yeah.
People, a lot of kids today wouldn't know what a pen pal is, but back in I remember at school, a lot of people kept in touch with their pen pals. So anyway, he had one letter left, and he said to my dad, Walsh, you never write to anyone, you never contact anyone, do yourself a favour and write this woman a letter. Right,
these were like to anonymous people, right?
Yeah, it's anonymous pen pal. Yeah.
So you just correspond in that lovely innocent
So he said, okay,
way.
So he wrote this letter to this girl, and that basically was backwards and forwards for 2 years, and that was my mum. So
it's a bit like an early sort of Tinder, really. Not really Tinder, more like a sort of I don't know, meet a new friend.
It's sort of like an online meet. Without the visuals, obviously photographs are going backwards and forwards, but you got to remember this isn't instantaneous. Pen pal, you're waiting in those days. I'll talk about when I went to Japan in a minute, but I'd wait 3-4 weeks for a letter to get to me.
From your dad, yeah.
You know, and I'd be waiting, you know, for the postman to come and then running to the post box to see, you know, if there's anything for me and the dojo. But I'll come back to that. Digress. So then my mum and dad got married, and he was back in for 2 years, and she'd moved down to Portsmouth. Obviously, that's where the British Navy's based, and she'd moved down to Portsmouth and got pally-pally with a lot of the other wives. My husband's on the same ship. And there was a Japanese guy that arrived in Portsmouth and set up a self-defense school, judo and aikido, or judo for.
So he was on one of the ships, or
no, Yamada. He was the Japanese guy that obviously one of the military personnel in Portsmouth, because it's a huge, you know, garrison. It's obviously the home of the British Navy. That obviously, you know, brought him over to Japan from Japan to England to teach martial arts. And my mum and the other wives started this judo course with this guy Yamada, and my dad was like, obviously, you know, London Irish boxing, you know, bloody Japanese martial arts.
Fit as a butcher's dog.
And this is not long after the war as well, so there wasn't a really good feeling about the Japanese as well, considering a couple of our uncles on my dad's uncles had not fared too well in the prisoner of war camps. So when he came back on leave, he went down and he met this guy, and he was truly impressed. So fast forward, when he left the Navy, they moved back up to South London, to Croydon, to my nan's house, and they took the Yamada with them and opened up a dojo in a bombed-out building in East Croydon.
So for those that don't know,
right opposite the snooker hall that the Cray twins owned.
Right. Okay. So for those that don't know, dojo obviously. I mean, dojo is obviously a Japanese gym.
You call it a gym, yeah. A dojo is a training area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he was teaching judo and behind closed doors aikido.
Which is what?
Well, the difference between judo and aikido, I can give you the history of Japanese very, very quick.
What's the difference between judo and aikido?
Back in the very early days of the samurai, back in the 12th, 13th century in Japan, the samurai had obviously swords and whatever other implements that they had. But jiu-jitsu was the main form of of open-handed self-defense. This is way before karate. And there were various styles of jiu-jitsu, obviously, all depending on what clan you were and what area you lived. It's a lot of masters specialising in that, but there was only one jiu-jitsu. It's like boxing. There's only one style of boxing. Right? It's the same sort of thing. So then a very famous samurai became a shogun, Takeda Shingen, went to China in the 15th century and learned Tai Kyoken, Tai Chi, which you'll see older people in the park doing.
Yeah, Tai Chi,
this.
yeah.
And he morphed that with, and it's almost like Shaolin sort of Chinese monk style martial art. And he morphed that with jiu-jitsu and created Aikijitsu.
Okay.
So jutsu means kill.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
It's finished.
This is what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
So
So
one is
jutsu
a training thing, and
So-
one is an actual combat.
So,
thing, right?
Kenjutsu, Ken is sword, so that's the art of killing with the sword.
with the sword. Yeah.
So after MacArthur actually after the Second World War took away the jutsus and said no more killing, just do. Do is the way.
Right.
So jiu-jitsu became judo, and judo was already prevalent as a sport anyway.
Right.
Because killing is not a sport. Killing is killing. It's defending and killing.
Yeah.
All right. A sport is more of a do. So judo, kendo.
The way.
It's the way. All right. So you don't have aikido. You have aikido, but you have aikijitsu, which is more killing.
Right.
So that's giving you a bit of history on.
So the old Yamada-san. Hi. Shout out to Yamada's spirits and family, and opened a dojo opposite the snooker hall that the Cray twins owned, and your old man, fit as a butcher's dog, and presumably you at aged what, 7? 6
No, I was 3 or 4.
3 or 4 were in there.
Well, I remember the Crays coming in. There was a bar in there, a legal bar, and when they were studying judo, we were allowed up on the mats. But when they did aikido, it was behind closed doors. And we go down to the bar, me and my sister. She was probably 3, I was 5. And we'd have Cokes and chips. And I remember the Crays would come in because some of the enforcers that they were using, some of their muscle, were training upstairs with my dad, basically.
Huh. So you met the Cray twins?
Yeah, they bounced us on their knees, and they were very well-dressed gentlemen, nice gentlemen. Obviously, it wasn't until my later life I realised how how close we were. But, the pub that my dad used to hang out with my uncles and my family was called the Mitre, and right opposite that was the Duke of York. And that's where the Krays used to hang out with all the villains. And my dad, my uncles would say, never go into that pub. Never, ever go into that pub.
Right.
Literally opposite each other.
Right.
You had the Mitre and the Duke of York on the Canterbury Road.
There's a lot of history there.
Which is where the title to the book came from.
Oh, yeah?
The book that you're ghostwriting for me.
We're not going to... Are we going to talk about that?
I segued into that for a minute.
Yeah, you did nicely segue into that. Because, having written my book...
Yes, I know. Thanks.
Eating the Wind.
Brilliant.
Available on Amazon, Audible, and various other places. We have talked about writing your story, because it is an incredible story, and I want to continue to focus on that. So you grew up then in the gym until you were in your teens?
Yeah, so sort of progressed from there. So obviously, given Aikido, you certainly in the UK, you weren't allowed to study until you were 14. You had to be sort of a semblance of an adult. It's just the way the Japanese instructors wanted. They didn't want to be teaching kids. They wanted to be teaching adults. But obviously, from my dad, I was training from the age of 12, and every day. My dad had, my dad was working really, really hard, but he'd finish work, come home, and we'd jump in the car and we'd go to all these various leisure centres, halls around London.
Right.
We'd go as far as High Wycombe, Stevenage, Guildford, Watford. We were all over the place every day for an hour and a half training. So I really, obviously, I had my social life. I was a mod, a punk, then a mod, scooter, and all sorts of revolutionary problems that teenage kids have. But really, my sort of solace was training Aikido. So on my 18th birthday, the Shioda Gozo, who's the master of Yoshinkai Aikido, the style that I did, his son came to England to teach and took over from the previous instructor. And on my 18th birthday, he said to me, "Right, you're an adult now. What's your dream? What's your wish? What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go to Japan."
Ooh.
And spend a year in the Hombu. Hombu is the headquarter dojo school, so the headquarter school, which is where the special forces, secret police, secret service train. And I said, I want to go and do that 1 year course, which is legendary, and I've been hearing about it since I was a kid.
Right.
Where they take 10 of the top special forces, special police in Japan, and put them through a 1 year, bit like the Navy SEALs, SAS selection,
Right.
a bit like the selection, and it's a 1 year course, and those that pass, that finish, end up being Secret Service.
Right.
So I said, I want to do that course, and it's impossible, never going to happen. You haven't graduated university, you're too young, la 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 la. So, okay, but on my 19th birthday, I had the same birthday as Michael Jackson.
We were just talking about Michael Jackson.
Yes, so 29th of August.
With Rhett Hutchins, right, VT?
You should see me moonwalk.
Actually, I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
Pretty impressive. So is it is it time for another beer or what?
Let me just get to the next.
I'll open the
chapter.
beers. You got on a plane at some point.
So on my 19th birthday, he asked me the same question at my birthday party and said, "What's your aspirations?" I said, "I still want to go to Japan." He said, "Good. You're booked to go March the 23rd next year," which was March the 23rd, 1983.
Wow.
And I did. So
you at the age of 19
I was 19 and a half, exactly.
flew to Japan to pretty much, I suspect, a pretty hard, the hardest core dojo in, was it Tokyo?
In the world.
Yeah, and it isn't based in Tokyo?
Yeah.
Hardest dojo in the world is based in Tokyo. Presumably the other guys there were older than you.
Yeah, everyone was older than me.
And then I mean, I know Japanese culture a bit, being married to a Japanese, that being the youngest in the room, especially when you're into training or learning something, is going to lead to you pretty much doing the shittiest jobs that are available.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I can tell you. I mean, we were up at 4:30 every morning, and we all had jobs to clean the school. And the school, it was a huge building. It was 2 stories with a basement. In the evenings, we had ordinary people came in for classes 2 times a week, 2 times a night. So they had their sort of locker rooms and shower rooms for men and women downstairs. And then there was the sort of offices and living quarters for the living deshi, which is living disciple.
Okay.
So I was a living disciple.
You became a living disciple.
Well, I wasn't actually a disciple. I was called a dojo-in, which is a dojo is the school. In means that you're living there.
Right.
You're not actually anything yet.
Right. Yeah, you're nothing.
You're nothing.
Yeah.
You are scum.
Yeah.
And the whole selection process is like any military selection process, is to make you want to quit. There's a door, go, right? So the 16 guys that started the course, me being the only foreign guy and the youngest by far.
Well, let's just stop there, because I mean, you're the only gaijin there, right? The only foreign guy there.
Gaijin is foreigner in Japanese.
Yeah, you're the only white guy in a school of how many were living in and being
16.
disciples? 16.
And 16 living in, so there were 16 of us. One
And they'd
room.
be the trainers?
It's called a gashikujo, which is one big room. There was one big room, and we're all in that big room, and then there are other residential rooms where the teachers lived as well. So yeah, it's very, 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 very military, and the Japanese are very, very military oriented.
They are.
It was really, really like that, and to get all the elements right during the summer, all the windows were closed. And on the second floor was the main dojo area, which was massive, 200 tatami mats with floor-to-ceiling, massive ceilings of just reinforced glass. And in the summer, they were all closed. Everything was closed. So you'd pass out with lack of oxygen when you're training, and you've got 20 guys training. The oxygen would just disappear, and you pass out.
As some sort of test or what?
Yeah, just put you through. Yeah, and in the winter, all the windows were open. Everything was open. There were no fires.
Do you remember the first day that you arrived?
Yeah, I do, and it was really a wake-up call, and I sort of cried because all my aspirations, I had all these visions and dreams of being sort of the next sort of Aikido master, and then it was a sudden really wake-up call on the fact that not only that I don't want the Japanese guys that are here, they want me here less. I'm young, I'm white, I'm foreign, no one's ever done this, and we don't want this guy here. I didn't speak any Japanese. I wasn't allowed to speak English. I got hit with a stick if I did. If I whistled, and the first time I whistled, it's the last time I've ever whistled in my life. I got knocked out. It was really bad. And we'd have a communal breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the big table in the mezzanine outside the kitchen area. And it would be rice and whatever they'd cooked up, and if you didn't know how to use chopsticks, you starved.
Right.
So, and I'd never really used chopsticks. I did do some training because I was told you better start learning to eat and what you need. So actually in the UK, I was boiling rice. I was having that with raw egg and soy sauce. And
But you got there, man, and it was brutal.
It was absolutely brutal. And then obviously...
when was the first beating that you took there?
The first beating was I arrived... I remember arriving at Narita and being picked up by one of the instructors, Nagano Sensei, who we became really, really close friends. He was one of my senpai seniors. And with 2 riot policemen. And this is in 1983 when... the Japanese were going through serious sort of a revolution almost, and the whole airport looked like a concentration camp. It was like a massive high security prison, and they had towers up with the guys because the locals didn't want the airport where it was. It was the same year that they opened up. So they'd opened up the international airport in Chiba, which is Tokyo International Airport. It's not even in Tokyo. It's in Chiba.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to Chiba. I've got family
shout
there,
out
by the way.
to-
Yeah.
And at the same time, they opened up Tokyo Disneyland as well.
Yeah. Been there.
Some of the funniest
Anyway,
times
go
of
on,
my-
sorry.
anyway, segueing off. So they picked me up, and it was March 23rd, and it was freezing cold. And I'd expected Japan to be hot because I just everything I'd got wrong.
Right.
So a lot of my aspirations, everything I had, a lot of my dreams, I was on the first day. It was like it's going horribly wrong. So we arrived at the school. I got thrown in the dormitory room. I was shown this is your mattress, which was a futon, which was about that thick.
About an inch thick. Yeah.
Well, an inch thick, and about a foot too short for me. And here's your blanket, and it was literally an army grade blanket.
Right.
That was it. Get you to gi out, training in an hour. So there was no this fanfare welcome that you're expecting. I'm the first foreign guy to go and do this, and you expect, we've looked after, my family have looked after the master's son. I found out there was some political problems there where they hated him, and that's why he was sent to the UK, and then I'm the product of that, sent to Japan.
Ouch.
Yes, so there's another reason why they didn't want me there. So training in an hour. So in Japan, it's white belt and black belt. That's it. There are no color belts. Color belts were created for foreigners to give them some sort of incentive.
Yeah.
But in Japan, really in true martial arts, there's white and black. That's it.
Right.
White and black. That's it. So I've gone up with my white belt, and at that time I was a brown belt, even though I've been training for 7 years, a lot more than most Japanese have trained. So I was a little bit more qualified than I should have been, and they knew this. So training started, and it was an open class with people that came to this. It's normal people that came to study Aikido, normal people.
Civilians.
For civilian class. And they open practice, and they paired me with a Japanese woman who was absolutely gorgeous, black belt, and she absolutely. And they did a technique called yonkajo, which is where you take the bone of this part here
in your hand,
and you put that on a nerve meridian on your wrist. And it's very, very painful. If you apply it correctly, anyone with a gun or a knife or whatever they have in their hand, they're going to drop it. It's like an electric shock. We did that for an hour and a half, and I was in serious pain. I was crying, and it turned out she was the master head of she was the chief sensei, chief teacher for the Tokyo Police Women Academy. And they put me with her. This is my first training session in Japan.
She would be half your weight.
Absolutely destroyed by one of the most beautiful Japanese women I ever met, and probably one of the most dangerous. So that was, and of course, after that, the next day, I couldn't use my hands because my nerve endings were damaged, so I couldn't even pick up a chopstick if I tried. So I couldn't really eat, and then I had to train. So the training was really, 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 really hard. I mean, up at 4:30 in the morning. Then we went on a half marathon. While the guys were fixing breakfast, we came back, had breakfast, had a little sleep, and then training started at 9. And it was 9 till 11:30. Stopped for lunch, and then 1 till 3:30, 4 till 5, 7 till 8, and then 9 till 10, and then that was it, done. Every day.
Wow.
Except for Mondays, which was the dojo was closed. That was everyone could go back, see their wives' families, the police, the teachers, whatever. Except for me, because I couldn't speak Japanese and I was a liability, I wasn't allowed to stay in the school. So I was literally kicked out the door at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning. So I took a blanket and I went up to the local park. Kogane Park is a beautiful park, and especially in April, there's probably more cherry blossom there. It's just fantastic. Very famous. They have a really famous Japanese archery school there. So I'd go up and hang up there because I had no money, and I befriended the tramps. the street bums.
Right.
And they sort of took me in. So my Mondays was learning Japanese with them and teaching them English, and literally living under tarpaulin with a bunch of bums on a Monday.
Mad.
Yeah, it was madness. Yeah.
So you learnt.
And crying that I wish I was in Wormwood Scrubs and not here.
Well, man, I've been to prison, and it sounds a lot better than that.
Well, I was
you know,
wishing I was in prison. It was like, what have I done?
Yeah.
And then obviously, then you start missing friends and family. You can't
Right.
call. There's no phones in those days.
Right,
I didn't have access to a phone.
Yeah.
So
I'm assuming that the initial sort of period of feeling that, but doing some training and the routine of it would have kept you going, right? But there must have been a point at which you were at your absolute lowest and thinking, "Fuck it, I'm gonna just just
I did
go to
and
the airport."
That sort of, I suppose, it's the sort of epiphany, come to Jesus moment that we all have at certain points in our
if we're
life.
lucky enough. If we're lucky enough.
It's a wake up call. No, you can call it many things: epiphany, come to Jesus moment, wake up call. And
Turning point.
it was, and given the fact I'm doing a samurai martial art, and the whole culture there was you die for the emperor, you die for Kancho Sensei, Shoda Gozo, God rest his soul. And it literally was a mini sort of samurai unit on that basis with that sort of hierarchy down. And it was like, unless they take me out of here in a box, I'm not leaving. So that really sort of, I suppose that is sort of the critical element in martial arts and in the army as well, I suppose in military, that you've got to come to that point where if you're dead, you die.
Right.
Spiritually, you're already dead. It doesn't matter what happens to you physically anymore. So there's that line you've got to cross. And that happened to me.
Talk us through that a bit more.
I can't really talk you through it. It's something you've got to experience. I know there are a lot of military people who have experienced that. And they're still good friends. And they've experienced it as well. You can't explain.
It's a point at which you've crossed a line.
Well, do you
given yourself up to something else?
And do you give up and go home?
Or do you get up and do?
Or just go until you're dead.
Right.
And I thought, they're not going to kill me. Well, maybe they are. And people had died doing this training. And people died during military training. So it's, am I ready to go that last bit? I think there is a subtle change in the way you are and your eyes, the way you look and your attitude once you cross that that precipice, so to speak. The teachers and everybody around you, people who are involved with you, understand. All right, you've come over to this side.
They can see it.
Yeah, it's everything in life has that line. When we're struggling, no money, debt, or whatever, and we're surviving, do we cross that line and become a criminal, rob people, do drugs, sell drugs? Do we do that to survive? It's once you cross that line, it's difficult to come back. But is that crossing that line and what you're attaining on the other side, does that actually add value to people? Is it a positive or is it a negative? Now with Aikido, purely I means love, harmony. And ki is the power. And we know ki, chi actually has a lot of power. It's not external power, muscle power, brute force. It actually has a healing power as well. So if you look at the qualities there in Aiki, then it sort of made a lot of sense for me to just keep going. And I was in a lot of trouble. I actually, a couple of times, I was damaged, broken, broke both wrists. I had ligaments torn, bones, all my toes were broken, all my fingers were broken. It's like, how much can you break before you die, right? But you keep going. Yeah.
Where does that, thank you, man, for sharing that. Where does that lead you?
It sort of...
Or where did it lead you in your life?
At the age of 20, when that sort of happened, 1920, it makes you become very sort of philosophical. And you start looking at sort of esoteric sort of energies as well. and looking at what your dad's been through, your mum's been through in their lives, and you start analysing things in a different way. Certainly I did, and I think that made me a lot more of a mature person very, very quickly. Because I think if I'd stayed in the UK, I'd be dead or in prison, and my friends and my family say that right now. If you'd have stayed, if you didn't go to Japan when you were 19, you'd be dead or in prison. So, double-edged sword.
I think you would have found that line anywhere, man.
Maybe. Well,
where did it lead you then?
Transfixers said non-mortis, right?
Right.
Transfixed but never dead.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. There's that.
And that's really when I started to understand the philosophy of taking the positive out of the negative.
Yeah.
If you immerse yourself in willingly immerse yourself in a negative scenario, it's got to be because you're trying to find the positive out of this.
Baby.
Right?
Yeah. The thing outside the window.
Yeah.
I like to call it.
So, when I talk to people now, it's okay, I've got a very eclectic experience, because obviously Aikido then led into investment banking and la 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 la.
So let's talk about that a bit, yeah. Let's move it on, because I'm just like got goosebumps there, I've got chills and I'm going to start crying. So we're not going to, yeah.
You can't get much.
But you spent a year there, and at some point you presumably you progressed clearly, and you graduated, I imagine, and then. I don't know. Did they send you out to train other people? Is that how it worked?
So I sort of really my first sort of opening to foreign people in Japan was being sent up to Yokota Air Base to start with. Yokota Air Base is one of the biggest depots, for want of words, in the American military outside of America. It's a massive air base in Japan. Obviously was an old Japanese air base during the war, but that air base supplies, in those days, supplied all of the Marines, all of the military forces in Okinawa, all the Marines are based, Philippines, which obviously is not there anymore, Clark Air Base was there, and obviously it was very, very active during the Korean War and then obviously the Vietnam War.
And you started training people?
So I was sent up there to train the security forces that were based there, and then I was sent up to Camp Zama, which is on Mount Fuji, which is where the Marines have their special forces.
By this time you're fluent in Japanese?
I'm fluent in Japanese.
By this time you're fluent in Japanese? You had to be, right?
Well,
yeah.
Actually,
you could use chopsticks. You knew what the hell was going on.
It's quite funny because the letters were taking too long, and one of the Japanese guys, one of the Japanese special forces guys, that was living in the dorm with me, he had a tape recorder, listening to music. So I came up with the idea of doing cassettes. So I bought some cassettes and I was doing speech cassettes, sending them back to the UK, and then my friends and family, so then I was suddenly getting sort of hours and hours of sort of info and actually hearing voices. It's just
rather than a letter.
Yeah, it was a game changer. I mean, that was a huge game changer for me.
Because you must have been there in the dark, man, on your own.
Yeah, but when I sent the tapes back, they were like, "You sound American,"
right?
Because I was interacting with the Americans so much that my accent, they couldn't understand the South London accent.
Because you weren't a fucking
and I actually
Cockney
hadn't
anymore,
spoken English for about a year anyway.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
So I was all over the shop.
So you're training special forces at the different bases, which must have been wild. You being a white boy and all that.
Yeah.
They must, when you walked in the room, they must have been like, "No, this ain't gonna happen," So China, they did. Sorry,
well,
Japanese are so proud.
I was teaching at Japanese universities as well.
Right.
I was the resident at, once a month down at Sangyodai. Sangyodai is the Kyoto Industrial University of Kyoto. A lot of universities in Japan have, it's like football teams. They have their football clubs, whatever. They have Aikido clubs.
So you're still attached to the dojo in Tokyo then?
Absolutely.
And they're sending you out to do these things, yeah?
Absolutely.
And other...
No, I was living in the dojo.
Living in dojo,
I was
do day trips sort of thing?
At that point, I became... So after I got my... after the first year, when the 16 down, there was... of the 16 of us living in the room, there was only 7 of us left at the end of the year.
Right.
That was me and 6 Special Forces police. And the master, Shilagoza, then asked me, and I was due to go back then to the UK.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do, open up a school there and blah, blah. And he asked me to stay and be his 7th disciple.
Wow.
So I became his 7th disciple.
7 sons of 7 sons and all that.
I was the 7th son of the 7th son of his 3rd son. So I did that for 2 years. And it was fantastic, or 2.5 year and a half. And then at that time, one of my students was a very wealthy man, because we did a lot of private stuff for high net worths and politicians and A-list people to teach them and their families self-defense. So a lot of these people had their own security details or security people around them, and this was more of a personal basis. So like Mick Jagger and a lot of the rock stars, they do karate or whatever. That's it. So, and he just happened to be the heir to one of the oldest stockbrokers in Japan, and asked me same question. Funny enough, that my Aikido instructor asked me when I was 19. You're a master. You're 19 now. You're 18 now. What's your aspirations? What do you want to do next? You're an Aikido master now. What do you want to do next? Well, I'd like to get a job to make enough money to go back to England and open up an Aikido school.
Damn.
And I've got just the job for you, because Japan is now the 2nd economic power on the planet, and everybody's coming in, and we need foreign speakers. And
So you went from being the disciple of an Aikido master.
it was a very quick, unusual transition.
Coffee boy in the biggest.
Well, coming from South London, on the street in South London, where you can turn a...
You knew a trade. Like to trade. Yeah.
We know. Exactly. Spending most of my life in the bookmakers with my uncles and grandfathers.
Right.
In fact, when I was at school, we'd get on the way to school, me and my mates would get a copy of The Sun. And when we got to school, this was when I was sort of 12, 13, we had a copy of The Sun. And my granddad lived in a flat in Putney. In
Shout out to Putney.
Yeah, shout out to Putney. Used to drink down at the Trafalgar. Anyway, we get a copy of The Sun on the way to school, and at the morning coffee break, this was like 10:30 in the morning, we'd pull our lunch money, because our mum would give us £1.50 whatever it was for lunch, right? So we pulled our dinner money, and call my granddad and go, "What's up, Granddad? What's going on?"
And he'd give you
and he'd give us the 2 me, boom, boom, boom. And then at lunch break, we bug out of school.
We go put the money on the horse.
Go down to the local bookies and say, "Hey, mister, can you put this and this and this?" And we did very, very well. We did very, very well. So.
So you went from being the disciple, into a sort of, I guess, the coffee boy. Would you have been? Because I remember when you're talking about this. I remember the way I've always heard it said about how it starts in trading rooms from certainly from the sort of Cockney aspect. Is like the first guy, the youngest guy in the room is the one that has to take the orders for the tea and the bacon sandwiches and the coffee and all that.
It's called a blue button.
It's called a what?
They call them blue buttons.
Blue buttons, right?
Back in the day, in British.
So you've got a trading floor of maybe 50 people or something. You've got to go around each one, get their order.
You are the slag. You are
the slag. But you've got to go and get their order. You've got and they give you like all sorts of, £20 or a £10 note or £5 note. It's never the right change, obviously. You've got to go and get those 50 things ordered right, delivered back to the desk with the right change, for every single one. Bam, 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 bam. And you've got to remember those without writing it down. And that, to me, is the epitome of, what trading's about. You're fast and you're smart and you can remember.
I experienced that also in the Aikido dojo. One of my jobs that I was given, because I was they didn't want me there, I was the scum, at 4:30 in the morning, my job was to clean all the toilets. And if one of the senpais, one of my seniors, felt that he needed to punish me, he'd haul me up when we were having our nap after lunch, because he needed that nap, just 15 minutes of sleep was just, you have no idea how valuable it was, like gold. You know, be waked up, throw in the bath, clean it again, clean it again. And they were the times when I actually physically cried because I'm being punished for something I don't know what I've done. And it's just, so it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That same sort of mentality.
Sort of brainwashing, really.
Yeah, because if you can't get through that, you don't deserve to be a trader. Right? Yeah. So it really is that sort of that educational point. It's just in public schools or whatever. You know, you got your seniors, you got your prefects, whatever. In every part of society, you have that test. If you want to be part of the elite. And a lot of the people actually started at that basis as well, and have went through that. A lot of the elite bankers, family money from Eton or whatever, they went through that at their prep schools as well. They weren't with their families; they were away from their families.
Fagging,
And exactly. So there's a little culture in there that comes from that.
So okay, let's just so how did that then play out for you talk to us about the stockbroking firm in Tokyo that you walked into that.
I sort of got away from that, but I'd experienced it, obviously, experienced that sort of mentality. So when I joined the Japanese company, I saw the same. But obviously because I spoke fluent Japanese, and I actually graduated and did my Japanese stock exchange license in Japanese. One of only a few foreigners to ever do that. That immediately gave me credibility. So what Kobayashi did was Mito Securities. He's the chairman now. He's the chairman now because his father and his grandfather had died. So family. He's one of the oldest stockbrokers. So what he did was he said, right, join the international department. He said, well, what I'm going to do is I want you to teach English to these people. So it's more sort of teach English to the guys was sort of the pull, but to get me more on the front end side of the business. So he said, right, what I'm going to do now is, and this is on my day off. I was still at the dojo, so my Monday off, I'd go to Mito Securities.
All right, so not the tramps anymore. No more tramps.
No more tramps. I'm actually going to the oldest stockbroker in Japan now.
With a suit on
and teaching English to the international department. And then he said, right, okay, next Monday you come. I'm going to put you on different desks on the front end. So they do fixed income, which is bonds, equity, cash trading, convertible bonds, and there's another couple of other desks that he put me on. And he said, which one did you like the most? I said, the convertible bond desk. And he said, okay, fine. Well, let's go back again, do the same exercise again. And this time I'm going to give you some money for you to invest.
Wow.
Okay. It was like $3 million. Okay.
Jesus. It's quite a lot of money.
In those days, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he wanted to see, he was gauging, obviously I'm under control of the other traders on the desk, gauging my ability to make money. And then I actually did well on everything. But he said, where did you think you did the best? I said, on the convertible bond desk. For people who don't know what a convertible bond is, it's a company that wants to raise money, so it issues a bond, and that gives you a coupon. So whoever buys that bond, gets 1-2% a year for the 10-year life of the bond, but they can also convert that bond into the equity, into the stock.
Right.
So it's a convertible bond. Right. So I like that because it's both sides. He said, you're actually best on that than anything. And he said, why did you buy what you bought? And I said, because the head of trading on his book, what he bought had gone down so much, I thought, it's got to go back up at some time, or he wouldn't have sold it. Right. So they then made me a convertible bond trader at Mito, and then sent me to London immediately to open up an office there. And at that time, warrants came out. So we're talking derivatives here.
Right.
So it's getting very derivative.
Well, this would be the early 90s or late 80s, yeah?
No, this is 86, 87.
Right.
Yeah. So I was in London for the 87
so it's sort of junk bonds,
Black Monday crash.
Junk bond territory.
Well, No.
We say
Yeah,
derivatives.
yeah. Well, 87 crash was
Yeah.
exactly that. But I was in London, but I was trading 20 hours a day because I was trading. The car would pick me up. It was me and Kawasaki. He was running the equity desk. I was running the convertible bond desk and the warrant desk. And the car would pick me up at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, take me into the office, and we'd trade. And that was when Tokyo was opening. So sort of Monday morning Tokyo is midnight,
Right.
midnight London. So I did that for 6 months to set that desk up. And while I was doing that, a boutique derivative house called Cresval Cresval were in Hong Kong at that time.
Yeah.
And they wanted to open in Tokyo.
That didn't end well, did it?
No, Cresval did very well. So they hired me. I really wanted to go back to Tokyo. Mito wanted me to stay in London.
Right. I was in Hong Kong at the time, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I was working on the business desk at the South China Morning Post, writing about all this stuff. But I really had no clue.
So you may have met Steve Burnham.
Yeah, I mean, Creswell is a name I know, and there was a bunch of players.
Steve Burnham and Malcolm, the two founders were ex-brokers.
Malcolm, yeah.
Steve Burnham, Malcolm, I can't remember his name. Steve
Well,
Burnham.
shout out to Malcolm, yeah, if he's listening, which he won't
rest
be.
in peace, Steve, who unfortunately hung himself 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's a bit of a bummer. But yeah.
But they were absolutely lovely men, and they really gave me a sort of a trajectory up. We were an eclectic crew.
Yeah. That's what I remember about Creswell. Yeah.
Oh, it was we had.
I wouldn't say cowboy, but it was more like sort of frontiersman, you know.
Oh, it was the maverick. There's so many words you could put to. We'll put it on my desk in Tokyo. So then I went to Tokyo it was '89 to set up the desk there. The convertible bond desk was in the newish and sort of doing, wearing a lot of hats, trading everything I could trade. And we had John Phillips, who was a breakdancing instructor in Hong Kong. We had Graham Elliott, who was actually Rocky. Rocky was a director, head of trading at Bearings at the time.
Right.
Graham was his milkman.
What about Mark Farber? Do you remember him?
Yeah, Mark Faber.
Mark Faber, Dr. Doom.
Yeah, Dr.
I don't
Doom.
know if he's still with us, but yeah. But just to get back on track, because we're we're going all over the place here with friends and old acquaintances. But there's a lot of money around at this point, right? So you've gone from this kid, in the dojo, and you've gone through your military kind of trading. You've joined the great trading houses, and you've learned the ropes, and you've gone back to Tokyo. I mean, I know that time. There's a lot of money, and with a lot of money comes, of course, a lot of pleasures and a lot of ways to relieve the pressure that those desks, 24-hour desks, pretty much, that were trading. It was
insane. It was insanity.
Let's talk about the insanity of working that thing.
Rock star bankers, right? We really are rock stars, and actually better than rock stars because you're in control of your own destiny, providing you perform, and the same with rock stars, providing they perform and come up with the next album, the next hit song, right? It's exactly the same. So the pressure's really, really similar.
Yeah.
There is a comparison there. On that. So, but the money, it was fast and furious. It really was. It was insane.
How much money are we talking about under your management?
It's not so much under management. It was how much we were making, because we were market making. I don't know if you understand what market making is. And we were market making. Nowadays, you market making, it's on the screen. So you can put a price there, a buy and a sell price, and it's on the screen. But we were market making warrants, which were OTC, over-the-counter derivatives. They were not screen-based. They were not listed. A little bit like what we're seeing with crypto now. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that's not really screen-based. It's not.
So you're pretty
on
much making.
So it's off. OTC is off exchange, and
whatever somebody wants to then be prepared to pay for it.
Blind, and it was insane. It was just
an unjust amount of money. How much are we talking here? Let's say, give us some sort of parameters. Like in a year, what were you earning at the height of your
What I can say is that because we were expats, and this is the love of being an expat in those days, and Japan having really being very expensive, but also having very high tax, is that the banks would give you as an expat, you would get an expat package, and part of that package to offset the tax that you were paying on your salary would be housing, car. So you had a massive house or apartment, you had an Aston Martin or whatever you wanted, okay, and actually at Warburg's, we had, and I was head of trading there for a while in '91, $20,000 a month burn.
Right.
On the corporate account.
Right, just to spend in the bars and clubs.
That was it.
Entertaining.
That was to write off the tax.
Yeah.
If I didn't spend it, I didn't spend it.
Right.
So that trust me.
Yeah. You can get through it though. It's
Well,
amazing what cocaine will do for you.
Trust me, after a few months, 20,000 is not a lot.
Yeah, no,
actually,
right.
Actually, in those days, you won't believe this, but some of the whores, the whores.
Hey, your mother's going to be listening to
The
this.
whores were going around with these big handbags, and they actually had the slide.
Yeah.
They actually had. It was amazing.
Definitely
I saw
gold
just so
or
much stuff
platinum.
going on. She went, no, that can't be true.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? No, she's got the slider. You remember the old
slider.
slider?
Yeah,
machine?
yeah.
Put that, boom, done. Okay,
Yeah,
there you
so
go.
you're talking about, you could be at 10 grand a night job. It's embarrassing.
So,
God,
I
it's
can't-
awful.
I can't mention no, say too much, but I'm sweating a little bit. But
No,
yes,
we're not going to talk about whores, drugs.
A lot of that's in the book.
Well, it'll be in the book. Yeah, we'll get there. But crack cocaine is a good way to get through.
insane.
Piles of money, really,
It was
isn't it?
insane.
But it does, of course, end.
It's all part of the journey in a sense that this you look at the average age of musicians that kill themselves is 29, 27, right?
Right, of course.
Jimi
27.
Hendrix, it's 27, right?
Yeah.
27 is the sort of the
rock
magic
star death
or
age.
the death number.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people go off, a lot of traders, a lot of very, very intelligent, smart guys in finance go off the rails about that same age as well. And it was like you're burnt out by the time you're 30, right? And I know a lot of guys who are still trading to this day. They just can't get. It's a bit like Mick Jagger, still going strong.
Yeah.
A lot of these,
Yeah, why not?
same-
Really? I
Why
mean,
not? They're
if
still
you're still alive and
Still going
still
strong.
do it, 'cause it's a very addictive thing, all that.
But it really does come a point where you start looking at life-work balance.
Yeah,
Where this
which,
is
I mean,
not-
I think probably you'd learned earlier on, right?
Yeah.
I guess you had again another moment, as one would do at 30 or 40, and you ended up in Bali, for instance. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so you sort of, you look at, this is untenable. If I continue on this, it's not going to end up well. Yeah. But also, you've got a lot of knowledge and experience, and you do sort of get that Midas touch as well, where you think, doesn't matter what I invest in now, and because all this money coming, you're actually investing a lot in private equity as well. And certainly, if you're involved in equity as a trader, as obviously we were, I was, you get to understand research, balance sheets. You're not buying a company purely because it's a good name, right? And you're not buying Amazon or whatever because it's a good name.
A brand, you mean? I think it's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, you really.
I'm a brand guy.
Yeah, you're drilling down on the balance sheet.
Okay.
You're looking at the way banking works, the securities houses work, is that you have your front-end traders, and then behind that you have your research department, and then you have your research analysts and economists, and they actually go to these companies, and they really drill down the accountants and look at the balance sheet, look at the forecasts and everything else, and they come back with a recommendation. That's why you see Goldman's, Morgan's buy, sell, hold recommendation, right? Because they have a whole army of analysts behind them.
Right.
To give advice to the investors. But the investors, institutionals, long-term investors usually, pension funds, big institutions, not you and me on the street that want to flip an investment for $5 if we can in 2 weeks, right? That's what the traders do, but the traders can front run that information coming from their analysts to their institutional clients, knowing there's a buy recommendation, they can start loading up. Right. Okay, so there's a lot of strategies involved on that, but what it gives you as a person being involved in that is the understanding the necessity of really doing a deep dive in balance sheets. What are you looking at? So in private equity, am I buying like the dot-com bubble, for example, right? Everyone was just throwing money into tech willy-nilly. Same with crypto. Everyone's just throwing money into crypto willy-nilly. Fear of missing out. It's going to go up, right? That was the word on the street in Japan back in '89 before it all crapped out. So the same thing here. There's a massive misunderstanding or lack of education and understanding on what you're buying. So for me, from a private equity perspective, if I'm looking at investing in a company, where's that company going? What's the balance sheet? Who are the investors? What's going on? If I look at crypto, for example, what is crypto?
Let's talk about crypto, because I'm glad we've got here.
I know that's where you want to go.
No, I do want to go to crypto because we've got
some. Shall we have a fag break first?
No, there's no fag breaks, man. We're going straight through. Do you need another beer? Because I can do that for you. But crypto, man. I know you're obviously you're across the board on all finance, and you have been with your history. Whether you're involved or directly or not involved directly, whether you're into property in Bali or whether you've decided to take a back seat, whether you're still running some accounts or whether running other people's private equity or your own private equity, or doing some trading and all that. Crypto comes along, right? And crypto's come up, and that obviously would fit in now with any portfolio. I think you'd be stupid not to look at it. But what I see after, I don't know, 2-3 years of messing about with it on a very minor level is that there's a lot of FOMO. It's 99% owned and run by a 1% a number of the people putting money in, and the 99% are just the others just kind of trying to catch a wave on it. So it seems to me, and I hate to use the word pyramid scheme, but it just seems to me like this bubble that gets blown up.
Yeah, you mentioned the right word there, bubble, and bubble is comes up a number of times in my life when I get a Gojek driver, a taxi driver, or one of my staff, a maid, says, buy this, buy that. Okay?
Yeah, that's the time to look at it.
And it's like, a taxi driver in Japan telling me which warrant to buy in 1990, just before Japan.
Time to get out.
Yeah, so because, no disrespect to these people, they do not have the knowledge, experience and understanding of exactly what they're buying. It's that fear of missing out, get rich quick, it's going up, and that push has been, everybody's in, I'm going to get in now as well. That's got bubble written all over it. It doesn't matter what the underlying asset is, entity is. Once that happens, you've got to take a serious step back and go, wow, okay. There's some flaws here. Now,
I remember in the South China post office when literally the lady with the dinner trolley, the snack trolley came along, and asked me, where should I put my money? I knew then that it was all going to go wrong, and
it's a great indicator. It's when she tells you what to buy.
That's even worse. Really you need to leave the building.
You get out.
Yeah. Leave the building.
So that's sort of what I'm saying.
So what's your prediction for crypto?
So on that basis, it what I'm trying to say is it comes down to foundation and structure. Okay, so foundation and structure. So nothing ever goes up in a straight line. Evolution, whatever, nothing ever goes up in a straight line. Even the trajectory of our lives, from when we're born to when we die, is a trajectory that goes up. But it's got its peaks and it's got its troughs, right? And we don't learn on the peaks on the upswings. We learn on the downswings to the troughs. That's when we learn. And if you understand that nothing ever goes up in a straight line, there are peaks and troughs. It's staggered and stepped, and those steps down is to fill a structure that wasn't there before. So, how to explain? Everybody wants to be in the 50th floor penthouse and own that penthouse of 50 stories. But to build 50 stories, you've got to go down 5 stories, right? Now, any semblance of construction, you can't just build 50 stories up. Right. It'll fall down. You need the foundation. You've got to go down 5 stories before you build the first one. Okay. That's your foundation, right? And then you have a base. And this is crypto, but this is every financial market. But it's also where you're going with this. But it's also individual understanding and knowledge, right? If you've bought something just because you read what's on the tin without really knowing the history and where it came from.
On the 10th floor.
They're more for you, right? Yeah? So you can build up, but that's where your structure comes in.
And do you think that understanding where that structure and line is, the basis of it is really the secret to investing?
To me it is, because technical chart analysis, and if you understand, you have to understand a semblance of understanding of mathematics on this. But then again, everything, what we eat, breathe, live, our air, everything is as a mathematical formula. Our DNA, it's mathematics, right? So therefore, everything has a mathematical structure. For trading, I'm a very key chartist, and a lot of traders are. We look at the charts. The chart is how it's traded, and you look at a chart, okay? And it goes up, okay? Unless it's a shit company and it goes down, it's dead, right? But things do ostensibly go up. Even the evolution of the human race goes up. And you can see that the red parts go down. There'll be a pandemic. There'll be whatever happens. That's where we learn and we get stronger. But it does go up, right? So looking at charts, and Fibonacci is a fantastic mathematician that looked at it in cycles. And if something goes straight up, like I said, building 50-story building, and I want to be there, but I'm not going to go down here. And they're going to get there, it's going to collapse. And if I do get there, it will collapse. It's structure. So what's happened with crypto, for example, there was very little foundation because it's new. And also very little foundation from the people investing in crypto because they're young. And because it's new, no one's got the knowledge, experience, and understanding of risk. Okay? So everyone's poled in to crypto and it's gone up. And once that's creating these very weak structures, we need those structures to come down.
To collapse.
Well, not collapse.
Do you think because we're at the moment, I think Bitcoin's at what, 21 or something thousand?
It's 22. It's 22.
What's your prediction? Let's say for the next year, I've got 10 grand. Should I be buying Bitcoin?
Well, I can't actually on air figure anything like that.
No, I want it on record, man. I don't want to hold you to it.
But one thing I'd like to say though, crypto's getting a bad name. And there's a total misunderstanding, misperception right across the board from everyone from the bag lady, the bin lady, to the President of the United States, to whoever else you want to put up there, or what crypto is. Everyone's looking at Bitcoin, crypto, and then sometimes now you go to a bank or you talk to someone else, you go crypto, not interested. You've got to understand that crypto is a whole new universe. It's a whole new world. Yeah. Right? It's like, can you imagine when paper money came out, 500 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Right? What's paper money?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's gold or silver or tulips or gold or nutmeg.
This is another sort of paradigm shift event that we're going through. Yeah. But the reason crypto is so misunderstood, and it pisses me off, really pisses me off, everything, the blockchain is really what this sits on now, okay? And everything that sits on the blockchain, if it's a token, it's a coin, whatever it is, it's created through cryptography. So cryptography, it's like saying, oh, it's English. oh, I'm not having that. I don't believe in that because it's English. Right? It's a language. Right?
Yeah.
Cryptography is a language. It's a form of mathematics. So everything technical now going into Web3, into the metaverse, it's cryptography.
Yeah.
Can't get away from it.
No.
All right? So saying crypto shit, anyone who says that really does not understand the meaning of the fact that we're talking about the whole universe here.
Yeah, we're talking about a blockchain, and that's
Everything.
the technology that's based on.
So within that, there are certain areas.
Yeah.
It's like saying, bankers are shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
Or finance is shit.
Yeah.
Without really understanding all.
Yeah.
So crypto is not shit. Actually, there are certain components, and a lot of that technology has been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah, but it's fascinating, isn't it? Andy, if people want to get in touch with you or find out any more about what you're doing and these days, and it's been brilliant to talk to you, man. How would we do that? How would we see what you're doing?
I'm very much. I've got a sort of world domination with a water pistol in a drought.
There you go.
Scenario at the moment.
With to social media, you're not on social
media.
media.
So I am staying very much, and actually COVID has taken the positive out of the negative, has helped me to be sort of very hermetic. So I've got a lot going on, but I've really gone sort of into my shell. Things are going to be announced. I'll be announcing stuff.
Because I know you're doing a lot of exciting stuff, which we haven't covered here today with Negra for one and a bunch of other. But we're not even going to go into that. I just want to say, Andy Walsh, what a fascinating guy you are, and what an incredible privilege it's been to talk to you, man. And we could just go on. I know there's so much more what I take from it, man.
I've got a few more beers left in that bucket.
We're going to do those later. But
after time out, guys, they're after hours party if you're around.
We're going to do the after hours. What I want to take from it though is that you're the basis of everything you've done, which again we haven't covered, has sort of come from where you're from and taking risks, going to Japan. What an incredible journey that must have been for you.
Leap of faith. If it feels right and it resonates in your heart and your soul, and you've been doing it for a while, it's not just a whim of a moment. It's a leap of faith. Do it, and believe in karma.
Andy Walsh, domo arigatou gozaimasu.
どういたしまして。
はい。
また今度よろしくお願いします。